In this tutorial, we are going to set up a simple grid in the editor. The first thing you need is a cell prefab. Normally, you would make your own cell prefabs, but for this tutorial, we will be using one of the example prefabs that come with grids. We will be making a pointy hex grid, so we will use a pointy hex prefab. As you can see, it's simply a game object with a sprite cell component attached, and it has a child with a sprite renderer to render the hexagon sprite. Next, we add an empty game object and call it grid. We then add the pointy hex tile grid builder script. We drag in the pointy hex cell prefab, hit build, and a single hexagon appears. We set it to use color so that we can better see what is happening when we run the game. When we run the game, we can see the cell is not responding to mouse input. But if we set is interactive to true and we run the game again, we can see the highlights go on and off when we click on the cell. The grid builder has different update types. Currently, it is on editor manual, which means the grid will only update when we press the build button. If we set it to editor auto, it will update every time we make a change in the editor. If we set it to game start, it will update once the game runs. We can configure our grid into one of several shapes. We can choose the shape and set the size or the X and Y dimensions. Hex grids support two kinds of maps. Currently, we are using the hex map, which is the default map for hex grids, and the one you use when your cells are hexagons. The other map is a brick map. This is the map you use when you want a brick grid with the rectangular cells. The plane property determines how the grid is positioned in 3D space. When we select XZ, it is aligned in the XZ plane. We have to make sure our cells face upwards. You can see the grid is now flat on the ground. If we select XY, the grid will lie in the XY plane. This is the usual setup for 2D games. The alignment determines how the grid is positioned relative to its pivot. This is often useful when trying to align a grid within a 2D GUI. The cell spacing factor determines how close cells are to each other. This is a useful setting if you need a border around cells, or want cells to overlap slightly to reduce render artifacts at the borders of cells. The last thing we'll look at is grid colorings. To have the grid colored automatically, switch Use Color to On. You can configure the colors in the list, or change the color function, three values that determine the pattern being used. To see how this works, check out our website. If you switch Use Color off, it will use the default color of the cells.